All right, Jake, we have been able to make it happen. So this has come together brilliantly. Let's bring the people up to speed here real quick on our chance meeting, probably about a month ago. I came in to go get a haircut before I was trying to take off the next day for a business trip. And I'm sitting there waiting in line, and Jake comes in with his little ones to get a haircut done. And yeah, a bit serendipitous almost. We got chatting about where we are at in our lives now, how things have changed and where our focuses are. And sounds like you've got something pretty awesome going, which is what brings us to Resonate, the first episode of the Strive 5 podcast. So Jake, bring me up to speed here a little bit, man. Tell me about the story and the concept behind the idea of Resonate. What's the message? What are you trying to tell people?
Well, thanks for having me on. This is great. This is the first episode we're filming. It was serendipitous how I met you at the shop. I was bringing Bo in for my son for a haircut, and hadn't seen you in 15 years, and there you were. So it's funny how stuff happens like that, but all for the best. I feel we kind of met at the right time, and we had the same kind of paths in our lives. And in terms of Resonate, it's really about having a long-term positive impact in people's lives. So how can we as a company impact people in a way that resonates with the people around them and the community around them, and leaves lasting change?
Brings me to the next questions. One of the things that you had mentioned a couple times during our conversation is that it's deeper than motivation that's only surface level. So tell me a little bit about how you're trying to get that out of a client.
Everybody comes to you with different ideas of what they want out of it. And what we're trying to get out of people, and what I try to get out of myself, is becoming, the best versions of ourselves, whether it's through physical fitness, mental health, emotional health. You're able to accomplish a lot more than you realize, and we're all able to do a lot more than we think we are when we get to those points.
So, you've got somebody who's, they're trying their best. And then one of the things that you had said as well is that you're working to try and change the trajectory of their life.
Yeah.
So when you've got somebody who is ready to commit to this, what is it that you're trying to elicit out of them to help drive that trajectory change, right?
Yeah, so a lot of programs you see now are cookie cutter. What we're trying to get out of them are long-term changes that they can implement. And it's all encompassing, but it's about peeling back layers of people and understanding them on a deeper level. So when I'm working with clients, it's not just about, surface level issues. It's also about getting to know them on a personal level. Who do they care about? How do they impact people in their community? What drives them? What are their goals? What do they love to do? It's getting to know them on a personal level. We're able to, implement change more easily because of that personal connection.
Okay, great. So the next question was going to be, once somebody commits to this, how quickly can someone start to see or feel real tangible change?
I tell people not to set an expectation or give themselves an arbitrary timeline in terms of when they want to see immediate results. And the reason I do that is because it's built more around a lifestyle. Wellness to us is more of a lifestyle change than a vibe or a temporary fix. It's about consistency more than anything. There's no magic pill, there's no magic program, and there's no magic wand that will help you get to where you want to go in a short amount of time. It's about consistency. And there comes the philosophy of fitness. What is being fitness? What is fitness? What does being fit mean? And through that, I learned that being fit is more than, aesthetics or strength. It's all encompassing, and it has to be something that you strive for every day in terms of not just physical health, but mental health and clarity.
Okay.
And understanding yourself and becoming more self-aware, and stripping away those layers. And sometimes it just takes situations like that don't go to plan, Don't follow the trajectory that you set out
Yeah,
for
they're
yourself.
just thrust upon you and you find yourself in it.
And that's the best teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, the best teacher.
You know, I heard this saying a while ago, but I think a lot of us suffer from mental strength issues or lack of mental strength, right? Like, you know, in our lifetime, have we ever really had to persevere through anything particularly challenging?
Yeah.
Right? Like, no, I wake up in the morning and I've got a roof over my head. There's food in the fridge.
Yeah.
You know, so now all of a sudden there's an injury and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
well, I've had
exactly.
something taken away from me that it's more valuable than, you know, it's not a tangible thing, but it's been taken away from me.
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore. And so how do I come back from it? So
going on that for 1 second. So that's something a client actually brought me onto. Is a book that I love. It's called The Comfort Crisis.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it talks about a large part, you know, as a society, we're used to being comfortable. We live in air-conditioned buildings. We don't stay in the heat too much. We don't put ourselves under too much strain. We don't have to find our food. So all of those things work against you in terms of sharpening your skills and helping you progress. And in life, you don't want to be too comfortable because that's the opposite of progress. So it's the same with fitness, mental health, or anything. It takes work. And there's so much value in doing the hard stuff, you know, and doing the things that you don't want to do, taking the feeling out of it and doing what you know is necessary to get the job done. And that's where the discipline comes in on a day-to-day basis. It's doing the things that you don't feel like doing, but doing them because you know that they need to be done.
So tell me a little bit more about the principles that shape the body, shape the mind, and the character. When it comes to character traits, how do we apply the same type of idea?
How self-aware are you in terms of the monotony of your, you know, schedule? So a lot of people will wake up, roll out of bed, brush their teeth, put their clothes on, rush out the door. If they have kids, they'll get their lunches ready and throw them out the door. And then we go through this cycle every day. It's a rush in, rush out, sleep, don't get enough sleep, watch some shows, fall asleep watching your screens, get up again, do the same thing. It's all part of the same wellness profile in terms of what we're looking for longevity. They all have to work together. In order to get those things working together, you have to dissect each individual lifestyle habit with each client.
Okay. So with the dissection, what you had mentioned, the intersection between performance and purpose. Performance, okay, we want to be the best that we can be, but then, you know, the idea of purpose, like we live these lives every day where we're in the office, we're commuting, there's soccer practice. So tell me a little bit more about trying to find that.
So that's purpose is the important part. The performance comes afterwards. You have to understand why you're inquiring about taking care of your health, what you want to get out of it, and how is that going to make your life better. The why behind it, the purpose behind what you're trying to accomplish and where you want to go with that is what we try to find out from people. And we do that from a personal level, and then that helps us, you know, build a trajectory for them in terms of where they want to see their health and wellness go.
So here's one I can relate to. Like, I'm a guy in my early 40s. You know, I look around at my peer group. It's pretty much the same health and well-being missteps, stumbles. So a guy in his 40s, what would be a typical protocol for him? So he comes in, he's really done no exercise in the last 20 years since he stopped playing pickup basketball with his buddies, got married, had kids, is working up in his career. The first thing that always seems to go are the things that are the most important, like sleep, diet, exercise, etc. So, you know, for a guy like me, if I was to show up but hadn't really done anything in the last 15 years, what's a protocol and assessment going to look like for him?
The protocol and assessment for somebody like him will be the exact same protocol and assessment for everyone. It's essentially breaking down. We'll do a physical assessment to see where their limitations are and what's causing if they have pain, what's causing them pain. If they have restrictions, what's causing that. So it's a physical assessment, it's a lifestyle assessment, and it's a mindset assessment, basically. And once you get those three categories broken down, then we can start to build a plan with nutrition, training, depending on if they want to put muscle on, lose weight, sleep better, all those different aspects of their health and wellness. It's the same protocol for everyone at the end of the day. There is no special pill. There's no magic program. It's the same for each client. It's breaking down, what do you want to get out of it? Why? And then what are your physical challenges? What are your mental challenges? What are your nutritional challenges? And going from there.
Helping them realize they're capable of more than they think.
Mm-hmm.
How are we doing that for, a guy in his 40s versus, let's say his spouse? Because I know that some of your clients are husband and wife.
Mm-hmm.
I've been married for 15 years, right? I know that my wife deals with her approach to the gym or health and fitness much differently than I do.
Yeah.
So what does it look like when you're tailoring your approach to a completely different segment of your customer base?
Yeah, so it's on an individual basis, and that goes with getting to know people on a personal level and understanding their day-to-day routine. Because then once you're starting to implement change, that specific person, the husband or the wife, can talk to you about how their personal day-to-day routine has improved. And with training and as an athlete or as a non-athlete, you realize when you're doing certain things and you progress further than you thought you could, you surprise yourself. And so people tend to forget that when they're doing things that are hard. They back off a little bit, or they'll tend to avoid it because we're all the same. We want to feel comfortable and safe.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to push people past the comfort and the safety to reach a new level of understanding of themselves.
How rewarding though, when you've got somebody that you know is capable of so much more, right? And you see the apprehension at the beginning.
Yeah.
And a week goes by, 2 weeks goes by, 3 weeks goes by, and then all of a sudden you start to see that momentum gain. The reward is unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. There's nothing as rewarding feeling being able to giving back to people in a way that helps them be better versions of themselves and to help improve their quality of life. It's extremely fulfilling, and it's an absolute privilege to see people. I've had clients for decades now, the same clients, and just to see them in every aspect do better, in business or with their family members or with their kids, it's just, that's what it's about, really. I think that's the purpose behind Strive 5 is helping people live better lives, but also building the community up.
Yeah. So you're becoming a part of it. I feel like what we've lost is key characters in our lives that watch us grow and help us develop. So, example I'm going to give is I remember when, we were kids back in the 80s and 90s, like you had your family doctor,
Mm-hmm.
And that guy was with you, your mom brought you to the doctor's office for your checkups, after you were born to get weighed. And this guy watched you grow up until you were 18 and then headed off to university.
Yeah.
Another example is like the dentist that I had growing up. My parents invited him to our wedding, right? And you're there as an adult and you're like, this individual was there with me a lot, and they're all related to health and well-being. Another example that I've got is, some of the coaches who had the most profound impact on us are the guys that were there with us, from when we started playing, Pop Warner ball, and they watched us grow and they helped us develop. So, trying to help people establish and maintain good, lasting relationships, that with somebody that they can trust. We're so disconnected in our modern society.
Yeah, and that's the goal. Like that is the biggest thing that I get out of it is building these long-term relationships with people, and getting to know them on a personal level. Because I train different clientele in all different areas of work and socioeconomic platforms and demographics, and it doesn't really matter how much or how little somebody has. At the end of the day, we are all more similar than we are different. And we all have the same wants and needs. We just really, what we want is to feel important, to feel loved, taken care of, and appreciated. And so when you invest in yourself in these areas, those things start to come up more, and then you deliver those more to people in the community as well. And so that's what the best part of my job is that's what's most fulfilling.
We see a ton of content online about online coaching. And I 100% agree that for some people, online coaching is perfect.
Yeah.
Right? I think that for a younger generation that has grown up with tech in their hand, they can take guidance from somebody on a screen or through text or email, and it works fine for them. But not for everybody. So I know that I love being in front of a coach, or I love sitting down with somebody to help me analyze or fix my problems. You know, work is a great example. I like sitting down in front of my boss and identifying what the problem is, and then coming up with a solution and implementing it.
Yeah.
You know, when we do it back and forth by email, it's fine and we'll get there eventually, but there's way less connection and I find it's far less efficient. So tell me a little bit more about your business model, because it sounds like you're trying to spend more time with the person.
Yeah, so I believe in the power of connection. So I always meet with people either in person or virtually over the computer, and we are able to digest information better that way, in a way that people are designed to do it, you know, face to face or seeing each other eye to eye. That business model, you know, driving the change directly with people when you connect with them in person, is what we try to focus on because it's the most effective. I've been training people for almost 2 decades now, and I've always been adamant about being in person, connected with people, so that I can make the actual incremental changes. A lot of it too is understanding people at a deeper level. So you can see different aspects of their life or how they're carrying themselves, for example, or if they don't look so well that day, or if they're slouched, you know, a lot of that changes with not being able to see the person. And so you try to read all this information off of somebody just by, you know, not even talking really, just getting a feel for how they're holding themselves.
So oftentimes what happens in today's health and well-being fields, or let's say medical field, is that people are chasing symptoms and not the source. So when you've got a client, you're meeting with them regularly, you know what their problems are you able to more easily identify what the source of the problem is? So whether it be diet, lack of sleep, poor nutrition, or something along the lines of where you've put these parts in place that they need to adhere to, now you're in front of them and you can start to see where maybe they're not adhering to a specific protocol, and that's the weak link in the chain.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about, you know, chasing symptoms versus actually finding the source of the problem for what these people are experiencing.
Yeah, and that's right. When you're in person with somebody, you can directly identify more easily the source of the problems than if you're just getting script from somebody in an email, or if I'm writing a program and they're not getting results. Well, if you're doing that and you're not getting results, there's reasons. Maybe you're not being honest with yourself, or maybe you just don't see them up front. You're not self-aware enough. So when I'm in person with people, that self-awareness kind of gets brought up, and I continue to remind people, you know, of the different protocols that we've put in place, and that helps with people in terms of adherence and with self-awareness. And so again, being in person or, you know, virtual at least helps with that consistency, and then identifying the sources of the problem so that we can fix them.
The problem.
Yeah.
So what's the mission behind Strive 5 and the concept of Resonate? When we sat down and we started chatting, I think one of the reasons the conversation, that initial conversation clicked so well, is that I want to help my peer group identify the weak links in their wellness chain
Yeah.
and help these guys live longer, healthier lives for themselves and for their families.
Yeah.
Right. So when I was listening to you, it was very much in line with, as a guy in his 40s who's looking around and seeing his friends' health fail, watching his parents' health fail. Occasionally now we're getting older and we've got to go to a funeral every once in a while. So what is the mission behind Strive 5? What is it you're looking to do? Obviously it's a business, but it's more than that.
Yeah.
So tell me about that.
The mission of Strive 5 is self-awareness and bettering oneself. We all have people in our lives that we love, our parents, our brothers and sisters, our siblings, children, grandchildren. They're not all going to be there forever. None of us are. We're going to all go to the same place. And so my job and what I believe in is helping people live the best lives they can while they're here. And doing that is so much more than making money or growing the business for the ego.
Right.
It's more about reaching the most amount of people that we can, so that they can really soak up and seize the life that they have now, because nothing is guaranteed.
So with the life that you've got now, the clients come to you, you're implementing some key components to improve and extend their lives. Tell me a little bit about sustainable change. Because life is so busy and it is getting more expensive, organic foods now are twice what they used to cost 5 years ago. How are you able to successfully help a client implement sustainable change so that when they start this journey, they're not overwhelmed?
Yeah.
You look at the components and it's sleep, it's diet, it's exercise, it's fitness, it's spiritual components, it's
There's a lot.
It's overwhelming,
Yeah.
especially for someone who has no fitness or health and wellness background. So sustainable change, how do they do this?
It depends on the personality types that you're dealing with. You have to get to know people at a personal level, and that's why we connect with them. And it's a slow and steady, consistent change. It is not a short-term, this is the quick fix. I'm going to get you ready for the stage so that you can show off the best version of your body or whatever. It's a slow and consistent change that takes time, and it's not a couple months or a couple years. It's for the rest of your life, and that's what we try to drive in with people. Is it's not about next week I have a vacation coming up and I want to look and feel a certain way,
Right.
Or I just want to sleep better, this week because I have an event coming up, and so I'm not going to drink this alcohol or stay up late and watch a show. It's long term. Why are you doing this? Why do you want our help? What is the real purpose? And then I try to bring self-awareness through the consistency and not to create expectations. We all try to create these expectations for ourselves based off of other people and what other people are doing, how they feel, how they look. That's the problem with social media.
Right.
Is everything on social media is people are talking about themselves, how well they've done, or how well they want to do, and showing off their physique or their mental clarity or their meditation, whatever it is. That's all great, but we have to remember that they're not the metric we're comparing ourselves to.
Okay.
We are our own metric. So compare yourself to how you were yesterday and how you want to be tomorrow, not to the person on Instagram who's telling you how great their life is or how good they look.
Right.
It's about you and only you and the quality of your life moving forward.
So here's an excellent one. When it comes to metrics, a theme that I have found is that oftentimes you come out of the doctor's office, and the doctor looks at you and says, yep, your blood work's fine, you're average. Most people leave and they go, hey, they come home, they tell their wife, hey,
It's good. Yeah.
doctor said everything's average.
Yeah.
But I want you to stop and look around in your office, or when you're at the mall or at the sports field.
Or look at the doctor. Yeah.
look at the doctor. So today's average,
Yeah.
is today's average what it used to be?
Mm.
So should we be comparing ourselves to today's average,
Yeah.
or should we be comparing ourselves to today's optimal version of a 40-year-old male
Yeah.
living
That's
a
a good point.
lifestyle of sustainable change?
Yeah.
So for example, while that free testosterone might be average, is that optimal for
No,
where
it's
this guy
not.
can be?
Yeah, exactly. That's a problem you have with clients in general. People get so used to feeling average, or so used to feeling uncomfortable, or my stomach doesn't feel well, or I'm not sleeping well, and they do this for years, that they don't even realize that's not the way you're supposed to feel. And when you start to make changes in people's lives in terms of the nutrition or training program, or making them more self-aware with their sleep hygiene and stuff, and they start to feel better, and then they're like, wait a second, I feel way better now than I used to. Is this how
I'm
normally
supposed
supposed to feel, or have I just been killing myself for... Yeah, you have been.
Yeah.
So the metrics that we look at, of today's standards are they're average, and they're not optimal. And like you said, we want optimal because that's what you should get out of your day-to-day routine. That's what you should get out of your life.
Yeah.
It's optimal.
So the day-to-day routine, tell me about the 5 pillars that you're trying to, and I'm going to say trying to build for most people. When I look at the demographic that I think your target market is, most of these people have no real foundation of health and well-being. So what are these 5 pillars that you're trying to build? And then, when you're turning it over to them, what does it look like, when they go out and you're not standing there in front of them in a meeting or a training session? How are they building on these 5 pillars every single day? So tell me about that.
Yeah, so the 5 pillars basically of Strive 5 are the most essential parts of health and well-being, and that's what we think are the most important. And that we go over strength and conditioning and performance protocols. So building programs for specific types of needs in terms of if they want to get stronger for on stage, if they're an athlete, if they're an 85-year-old that wants to be able to get up and down out of a chair more. So we look at the strength aspect. In terms of longevity, strength and performance is one of the essential pillars of health and wellness. And so the stronger you are, the longer, the better off you are in terms of reducing injury and joint inflammation and that sort of thing. So we try to do that. First and foremost, we'll cover the other pillar we'll look at is nutrition and supplementation.
Okay.
And again, that's tailoring to certain specific needs of people's gut health or their hormone imbalances, aspects of nutritional programming, stuff that they want to look at in terms of, how much protein should I be getting in a day for women versus men, or for, a 15-year-old versus an 80-year-old.
Yeah,
it's very
that's
different.
Gonna shift.
Yeah, in terms of what you want to accomplish. So that stuff shifts. There's a lot of stuff out there in terms of what you need, in terms of how much protein you need right after a workout, and how much fat you need, and how many calories, and intermittent fasting, and all this stuff that people are really confused about because it's all over, shoved down our throats, basically all over the place. So we cover those aspects, and from there, one of the other areas we like to look at is the sleep and recovery aspect.
So that for me when I figured out that sleep and recovery is so vitally important, but it really is the easiest thing to implement. The benefits that come out of that. So tell me about the conversations that you're having with someone that has poor sleep hygiene.
So sleep is the number one issue I face with clients, and I have since day one. It's a problem for most people nowadays. And to be honest, it's actually a very difficult thing to solve. It's an easy identified problem, but it's a very difficult thing for people to solve. And what I mean is, we say sleep, 8 hours a night, 7 to 8 hours a night for optimal rest, and you'll wake up feeling refreshed. But a lot of the time, people have so many issues with gut health, cortisol levels, stress hormones throughout the day, poor sleep hygiene in terms of blue lights, screen time, unwinding, staying up past when they should. understanding the different chronotypes. There's 24-hour circadian rhythm, so understanding which window you fall in for what type of chronotype you are, and when you should probably go to sleep to get that best recovery, deep sleep. And we go into it in depth with clients and address, nervous system issues and diet issues, hormone changes, all these different types of cues that they can follow.
Yeah, so pillar 4, biomarkers and hormone analysis.
Yeah.
So I'm not a scientist.
Yeah.
Most people, when you get this information back, it's hieroglyphics to them.
Yeah.
So how do you help them analyze the biomarkers?
Yeah, so we're affiliated with Inside Tracker. It's a US-based company, but they're one of the leading companies in terms of blood work and biomarker analysis. And what they do is really nice because we can offer that to our clients. We have somebody come to the house, they'll draw blood, and I'll get a panel review with it, and I can review that platform with the client, but it breaks down each marker for your blood work. In paragraph form, it gives you, tips on how to improve those markers, what you can do for exercise and sleep, and it breaks it down in layman's terms so you can really understand, okay, what does this marker mean? What does that marker mean? How can I change those aspects? And then it breaks down, your chronological age. So you're based off those biomarkers, what is your chronological age versus your biological age saying? And so all those aspects help in terms of the hormone imbalances. And the other thing we do is, it's called biosignature modulation. It's a medical grade caliper measurements we take for fat sites on the body.
Okay.
And this is a developed algorithm for hormone imbalances. And so it gives us a better understanding of what kind of imbalances there are in our hormone related fat storage, why the fat is storing into those different parts of the body, and then what can we do from a exercise program, a nutritional program, sleep program to improve those hormone imbalances, and then they go together.
So that is...
It's like looking under the hood of a car, really. Yeah.
So that's a good example of what you were chatting about earlier where, we've got a symptom. The symptom is the fat storage at a specific location.
Exactly.
But then it's not about just a quick diet to eliminate that fat. There's a reason why it's being stored there. So what's the core problem?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It gives us an idea. It really takes the guessing work out of understanding, okay, I'm telling them to eat this much protein, this much fat, this many carbohydrates, this many calories. They're not losing weight. Why?
Right.
So, do they have a stressful environment? Is their cortisol too high? Is their testosterone too low? What's their blood sugar like? Blood sugar is huge. That's almost the beginning and end of all hormone imbalance is largely related to blood sugar and insulin imbalance and stuff. So we look at all that stuff, try to educate our clients on those things, and then slowly implement those changes over time. It's not a take all this information and then you're gonna, it's breaking it down on a long-term consistent basis.
So long-term consistent basis brings me to pillar number 5, which is one of the ones that I struggle with the most, which is mobility and joint health.
So it's the pillar of your longevity is your joint stability, right? So we take different protocols. One of them is functional range conditioning, which is a joint strengthening and lengthening protocol, which helps to maintain the capsule, the joint capsule in your shoulder and your hip, knee, wherever your ailment is. And that creates a strong foundation for the rest of your extremities to work from. And so it reduces injury. And so a lot of people I work with in their 60s or 70s, they get the ton of benefit just from having stronger joints, getting in and out of bed or moving properly. And then down to young athletes. Whatever their application is with the joint stability, it really excels. It shows in their performance with their sport-specific training. So joint health and mobility is really about long-term, health. And it really helps to keep the foundation in place.
So with the 5 pillars established, we've talked about a number of different areas of your service offering. Give me a quick summary. Let's say there's an individual who knows it's time to make some changes. They don't feel good and they're tired of being tired.
Yeah.
So what's your service offering summary to an individual who's ready to make some change but doesn't want to be overwhelmed with, oh my goodness, it's like drinking water from a fire hose, right?
Yeah.
So summarize it for me.
Yeah, so we'll get a call or we'll do a consult. I like to meet with people in person or over virtual meeting, but it gives me a better understanding of what they want to get out of it and what they need the most now. And so we'll meet with them in person, and then they'll talk to me about what struggles they're having or what they want to get out of a nutrition or training program, and we'll break that down in terms of how we offer our services. So they can go with blood work right off the bat. They can work with a diet, or if I think they just need a nutrition plan or they need nutritional coaching, then we can go in that direction. It's not all these 5 things apply necessarily to you right away. It gives them the option of, do they want to just focus on their physical well-being right now and see where they can go from there. What I find is they'll say one area that they want to work on, and then once we start working with them and we're educating them on the other aspects of training and wellness, then they start to encompass all those areas, and so it flows nicely in terms of, okay, I'm understanding what it takes to feel better, but it's something I didn't want to be overwhelmed with right away, so we take our time. And then from that point, we track, we do weekly check-ins. I see people 2 to 3 times a week, and we go from the programming to covering what their nutrition's been like that week, how their sleep has been, what was their week like. I always ask them about how their day is going, and because that all affects what stresses they're under. You're not performing well today. What did you eat yesterday? How did you sleep? And by asking these questions constantly, I'm able to get people to kind of subconsciously think about it on their own more, and it leaves a long term.
So you're looking to set them up for success on their own path.
Yeah.
Get them pointed in the right direction.
Yeah.
And help these people implement lasting change.
Yeah, self-empowerment.
Self-empowerment.
Yeah.
Well, Jake, I'll tell you what, man, I am encouraged about what it is you're making happen. I'm pleased that, I've got, the opportunity to hopefully be a part of this with you here in front of the camera and getting out there and sharing this message of Strive 5 and more specifically the concept of Resonate. So hopefully this is the first of many episodes that we're going to be putting up. I think we've done a pretty good job here of summarizing what it is you're all about, what it is you're looking to make happen, and how it is that you can make this happen for people. So
awesome, man.
All right, man. Yeah, this has been
Appreciate
great.
it. Yeah.
So hopefully the first of many.
Yes, it will be. Definitely. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.